Good evening, Vancouver. Welcome back to Canucks After Dark, December 12th, 2022. Just about 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks to go in the calendar year. And then we're off into 2023, and the Vancouver Canucks are still not very good. As always, joined by my co-host, Canuck Clay. How are you doing today, Clay?
Parker, I'm great. Thank you for asking. I am winding down my next course in my master's. So I finished my paper yesterday, got my final this Friday. It's perfect because it's a very slow week for the Canucks, but not a slow week in terms of topics, which I know we're going to get to pretty quick, but I'm good. And how about you, fine sir?
I'm good. I am, only 2 games for us to talk about this week. One of them was good. One of them not very good.
Oh.
Even the first one, also not fantastic, but we will go over both of those as we always do. And then obviously the big topic for tonight is going to be Bo Horvat, who has had some things swirling around contract / trade / whatever wise. So that's going to be our marquee topic probably in about 20 minutes or so.
Indeed. Yeah, and we always find stuff to talk about for sure. We could have talked about the Canucks playoff chase. We could talk about what's the identity of the team. There's all kind of stuff that I've been thinking about for my own channel. And then we had this little nugget drop this morning. But yes, we will build up to it for sure. We usually start off by going through the plethora of games that took place this past week.
Yeah, it's that's going to be the big one. And we have the Horvat thing sort of started with the Dolly Wall thing on Donnie and Dolly, and then him and Drance put an article on The Athletic, which goes well into detail, which we will be diving into for the most part. That'll be our big marquee topic, because guess what? We are only like 2.5 months away from the trade deadline, right? Like this is,
Yep.
we're talking about like 75 days or so, maybe 80 days until the move has to be made. But yeah, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's build up some suspense as we can do. So, do you want to start with some Canucks hockey?
Yeah, and by the way, just before we start, I just got to highlight this. iTech is here for the first time, which is awesome. He heard about this show, which is awesome, and then he presumed when I tweeted out or whatever that Clay, me, and Parker was Clay's son. Well, I hopefully Parker didn't throw up in his mouth, but yes, although we're good friends and I am old enough to be his dad, no, we are not related, but thank you. I'm glad that you're here.
That is funny. All right.
No comment from Parker. No further
comment. No, I'm good. Just 2 games to go over.
Yes.
The first one being on was it Tuesday or was it Wednesday? I think
it was Wednesday because we did our show on Tuesday. Yes.
Yeah. So Canucks Sharks. This is a game where Canucks blew a multi-goal lead. Have you heard that story before?
Oh man,
they blew one multi-goal lead and then like another regular lead. It was a mess of a hockey game that ended with a sweet goal. But yeah, Canucks get behind the 8 ball early. A former Vancouver Canucks legend Nick Bonino tipping a shot through to make it 1-0. Very early, 18 seconds in. Dakota Joshua ties it up, and then he gives them the lead. He gets 2 goals.
Yeah.
Should have been 3.
Should have.
Well, actually, no, that was goal interference. But he does get 2 goals. His net front on the power play 2 does work, and Canucks go into the intermission up 2 or up 1.
He's a big boy, and yeah, this game, and as the game progresses, people will see that it had a lot of similar aspects to the Montreal game 2 days prior, but not the start, because the start, we know Montreal went up 4-0. This one, we actually had the lead after 1, and yeah, Joshua was the best player for the Canucks, and that second goal, that power play goal, was nice. It was actually a tip from Garland, who actually made a really good play, and then Joshua with some really good hand-eye did he stop the tip, or did the tip actually get to the goalie? Regardless, he put it in pretty quick.
Yeah, it was a good quick finish. Just 25 seconds to go in the period. So the Canucks have the edge. And then to start the second period, we get a Niels Höglander goal, who has been, quiet for the last calendar year, basically. Yeah. So it's good to see him get his 3rd of the year. Just a nice little shot, similar to the goal that got disallowed from that JT Miller penalty about a week prior.
Good point.
So Canucks get the multi-goal lead, and nobody feels safe about it. because at this point they're getting outshot, right? Like after two, and we'll get to the San Jose goals in the second period, but
Sure.
I mean after two, the shots were 27-19, I think, in favor of San Jose. So pretty dominant in their end, and then we get a power play goal from Timo Meier, who seems to always do well against the Canucks.
Oh, he's so good. Yeah.
He's a very good hockey player. And then they tie it up with a shorthanded goal about 3.5 minutes after that. And this was the wait, which one was this?
Yeah, no, this is the one where Ekman Lars, it was the second unit was out
Right.
there. And I think Ekman Larson made a horrible, didn't Ekman Larson lose it?
I think so. I think he just got burned.
Oh no, you're right. He didn't lose it. He got burned, and then
He got the pass at the point.
Yes.
He had it on the backhand, just a bad play, trying to get it back into play, and then the stretch pass, he just got beat. Couture beat him.
This is a weird goal too.
He's slow. It's not like Logan Couture's very fast.
No,
but yeah,
it's not like it was a hard shot either.
No, it was a mess of a goal, shorthanded. But the Canucks get the lead back with about 30 seconds to go. It's an Ilya Mikheyev goal to make it 4-3 with 30 seconds to go, where he gets a beautiful breakaway pass from Tyler Myers of all people.
So Parker, can I tell you a funny story about this goal? So it was Wednesday night. It was a rare night where all five of us were home, me, Gil, and the three kids, and Sean's girlfriend, Fernanda, and Mickey, our dog. So 7 of us sort of watching the game. And I was explaining to the family how Tyler Myers has some really bad exit stats. Like the guy, can't remember a good time he's done either a good outlet pass or whatever. So I just finished saying, Parker, I said, watch, Myers is going to do something really dumb here. And then he makes this beautiful alley-oop pass to Mikheyev.
Yeah, it was lovely. You need to say more bad things about Tyler Myers, I think. Apparently it works. So going to the third period, Canucks up 4-3 again. No lead is safe with this team, and it's Jonah Gadjevich, former Vancouver Canuck.
This is the bad giveaway by
tying San Jose. Just a mess. And then guess what? They scored again. So it's 5-4 San Jose with about 8.5 minutes to go, and then San Jose takes a penalty, and the Canucks get back on the power play, and there's 4 minutes left. And it is Andrei Kuzmenko just parking next to the post. Was this one just next to the post, where Pettersson just fired it at him and it went in?
Like this one, yeah, he was on the goalie's
It was the slap pass, right?
Calling for it, exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So a sweet Pettersson slap pass with Kuzmenko just parked next to the post, taps it in, and Canucks tie it up, going to overtime. And then at the very end of OT, Pettersson scores, and the Canucks get a nice little win.
So some interesting similarities here. Obviously, the 1-goal win in overtime, similar to the Montreal game 2 days before, in a game where they needed a late power play to tie it up. I believe Kuzmenko scored in the Montreal game too, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yep. Petey scored the game winner.
Thanks to a sweet play by Spencer Martin, sliding out on that rebound.
That was nuts. Yeah. So in the Montreal one, it was only 13 seconds in, and that's because Matheson forgot how to skate. In this one, Martin makes a great save, and then aggressive on the rebound too, and then it goes the other way. Now, unlike the last game where we beat San Jose, where Timo Meier, remember he made that inexplicable line change right in the middle?
Yeah.
At least this one, they played a little more honestly, but it's because two of the San Jose guys were on their butts in our zone after trying to rush the net. Yeah, nice feed from Kuzmenko. Kuzmenko, underrated as a passer, Parker. Like we were all excited about his goals, but the guy's got 12 assists this year.
Yeah, no, he's very good, and that's kind of a problem, which we'll get to with the whole Horvat thing. But yeah, no, he's been fantastic. Yeah. And then this next game is all you, because I was at a Christmas party. I watched the first period and a bit of the second period, and they were losing. I saw the shorthanded goal in the second period.
Yeah.
And off that beautiful JT Miller feed to spring the breakaway. Just a bad. They played well, fairly.
Yeah.
But they just couldn't score.
Yeah, and I'll make this short and sweet because my mom taught me if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. It was okay. I was there with Gail and the two kids. We were the two boys. We were excited for a game where the Canucks could actually go over 500 and leapfrog Minnesota in the standings among a couple other teams. Yeah, Boldy scores in the first period, another power play goal where the Canucks lose the faceoff right away. It's weird. Horvat's 58% on faceoffs in the year, yet I think his shorthanded percentage is only 52 or 53. And it seems like teams score in the first 20 seconds. So that's what they did. A really nice play by Boldy. No chance for Martin. Yes, then we know the horrible shorthanded goal in the second period and it wasn't even a back pass, a blind back pass by Miller. It was a forehand pass. So he was even looking where
right
he was passing it.
Yep. Yeah, you mentioned Horvat's faceoff percentage. I think because on the power play you get to, the defender, all the faceoffs are in your own zone, so you have to put your stick down first.
Yeah.
And then they get to pick the side too.
Great point. So, and then Connor, I don't know, say Dewar. I just said it the exact same way both times. Yes. And actually, I think it was he's from Manitoba. I looked him up because I think it was his mom and his sister were in our section because they're the only two people wearing Dewar jerseys from his junior team. So they were very excited when he scored. And I was happy for them as a family, not happy that it was such a bad goal and really snuffed out any chance for the Canucks to come back. And then Sam Steele off a horrible, Ekman Larson turned it over, but it was Hoglander that should have probably had a stronger play. And there was a really nice backhand, but you never want to get beat by a backhand. And this thing, Parker, like I can understand if we lose. We're not going to win every game, obviously. But I was disappointed in the first period effort, outshot 14-4 in a game where it was right there. You'd fought so hard for the past month to get to this spot where you can actually be on the good side of 500, and they just take a small step back once again. That to me was the most frustrating part.
Yeah, it was a terrible first period outing. They answered back in the second, right? They had like the next 10 shots in the second period, but they just you can't score, and then you give up that shorthanded goal. It kills everything, right?
Yes.
So this team is constantly just fighting to be okay. Like they're just battling for 500, and to make the playoffs, you got to be 10, 12 games over 500. So the longer you spend at or below 500, the less likely it gets that you make it. So what do you think the Canucks odds are making the playoffs as per the Athletics odds, which I'm
guessing it's at 25% right now.
15%.
Oh no.
So it's not looking great because we've seen the Kings and the Oilers jump up as of late, which has not helped the Canucks' chances.
Yeah, and you always get confused. Sometimes you say, well, just finish third in your division. Well, easier said than done when Vegas is playing lights out. Seattle is still, I don't know how they're up there. Kings, Edmonton picking it up. Calgary's still struggling just like us. But yeah, we're battling for fifth and sixth in our division, not third. And then some of the central teams are starting to pick it up a bit. Minnesota, Nashville, Colorado surviving despite having none of their forwards. So it's going to be tough for sure. I can see where 15% comes from.
Yeah, and looking at their sort of odds, like the Central, like odds are 4 teams are coming out of the Central, 4 teams are coming out of the Pacific is what it looks like right now. Because Nashville's only at about 26% per these odds. So there's a big gap between Minnesota and Nashville of about 60%. And then you basically have the Oilers, the Kraken, and the Kings fighting for the last 2 spots in the Pacific, and the Canucks sort of out of it, at least per the simulation. So not looking good for Vancouver here.
Yeah, and before we get to the Horvat stuff, so Parker, what was interesting is so that was on Saturday night. The Canucks practiced Sunday. They did not practice today, Monday, and they will practice tomorrow before they head out to Calgary. And on one hand, people are saying, oh, look at all these changes in the lines and pairings. On the other hand, even guys like Dakota Joshua were saying it might have been just because more of a wake-up call because they have the big gap between games. But really, you had Joshua skating on the line with Horvat. You had Miller back in the middle. And then you had Ethan Bear skating on the, quote, 4th pairing with Dermott, and Kyle Burrows taking his spot. So a lot of interesting personnel moves in that one practice.
Yeah, and I totally see that being just like, we're gonna skate you guys hard. They did have a bag skate at the end. We're gonna mess everything up and see how everyone sort of responds, and then we'll see. Tomorrow's practice will be, a good indicator of the lines come Wednesday in Calgary, and then I'm not sure if they'll have a morning skate on Wednesday as well. Right. And we'll see what they look like there.
That's true. Afforded that opportunity, but man. All I know is if Dermott and Bear is your 4th pair, I'm playing them over my 3rd pair of Stillman and Myers.
Yeah, I am too. I'm putting Dermott and Bear in over Stillman any day of the week.
Yeah.
Because Bear is better, and Dermott might be healthy or close to it. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Who knows if that's actually the fourth pair, right? It's tough to
Right.
tell until we have um, until tomorrow at the very least.
Yep. 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 I know we usually do our predictions at the end, but do you expect a really good, intense game against Calgary on Wednesday in Calgary?
Um, well, Calgary is on a bit of they've lost three straight.
Yep.
They lost to the Habs today. They lost to the Leafs on Saturday. The
Hmm.
Blue Jackets on Friday. So you got to imagine they're going to be pretty fired up. They're back at home.
Yeah.
0-3 on their road trip. I have no faith in the Canucks really to come out hot, right? Like they're so you can tell usually pretty early in a game how they're going to look.
Yeah.
Hopefully they do a little bit better, but considering prediction wise, I'm not taking the Canucks over the Flames, but obviously we've seen crazier things happen.
Yeah. Just two games this week and battling two Western Canadian teams. It'll be interesting. Flames and
Mhm.
Jets. Yeah. Yeah. Man. Okay. I guess we should get to it.
What are we getting to? Bo Horvat?
Yeah.
All right. So here's sort of how everything went today. Um, Basically, Rick Dollywall goes on his show this morning at 10 a.m. And basically says that the Canucks made a trade offer, or made a trade. The Canucks made a contract offer to Bo Horvat's camp, and it was rejected. He also then said, believed it was less than $8 million a year for that offer. Pierre LeBrun then said further, this report told the Canucks made Horvat's camp the new contract offer a couple of weeks ago.
Hmm.
With the offer rejected, the Canucks are now focused on the trade market between now and March 3rd. That's also
Wow.
what Rick Dollywall said. He said they're basically at the point where, the trade market is going to be the most likely outcome here over some sort of signing. And then after that, we get about 5 hours ago, we get an article from Drance and Dollywall combined that goes much more in depth, which we can get to. But let's start with your morning. 10 a.m. rolls around. What are you seeing? What are you thinking?
So yeah, I'm at work. I usually have my slate of Monday morning meetings, and then I see this tweet. I didn't think too much of it until I actually watched the way that Dollywall articulated himself. And the first thing I thought of, Parker, was, of course, how shocked we both were when that Miller announcement came out late August. And then, of course, not just you and me, but people were saying, okay, what does this mean for Horvat? Does that mean they've, in essence, picked JT over Bo? And then, so it truly, in September, I was very pessimistic that they were going to get something done with Horvat. In October, I had heard a couple guys saying, actually, they're still talking. There's room for optimism. And then in November, again, it kind of we started to hear again that the talks weren't progressing well. They weren't meeting, blah, blah, blah. So it wasn't a surprise to me, truly, Parker, but it's still, when you think about Horvat being drafted, bred, homegrown here since the year he's drafted in 2013, this is massive. So if he gets traded, say in 2023, February or March, it's in essence just shy of 10 years that he's been with this team, playing for them for 8. That's nothing to shake your, whatever the saying is. That's a lot. That's big. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. It's been like an era, like an entire generation of this team. Like you think of when Bo Horvat first made the team, how many of those guys are still on the roster, right?
Yes.
Like is it anybody really
Nope.
at this point?
Nope.
I don't think it is. So yeah, we're talking about basically the longest tenured Canuck as of right now, and yeah, it looks like we're getting to the end of that road. Now, I'm thinking if I'm Bo Horvat, I am there's no way I'm taking a
Yep.
contract under $8 million when I can likely go to a better hockey team and fetch more than that. So
Yeah.
unrestricted free agent. Canucks basically, they're on the clock. They have to do something
Yes.
by March 3rd. Other teams know that, but other teams also know that they are getting a proven 30 goal scorer who might score 60 this year. And is, like, I think if he scores 40, that wouldn't be that impressive at this point. because he's got like 55 games to score another 20 goals. What's that, right? That's pretty easy for a guy of Horvat's caliber. So, um, yeah, we're when we're talking about a potential rental, he's going to be the number one on most trade boards, or at least one of the top three. I have to imagine, just like JT Miller was last year, and yeah, it really comes down to they locked in JT Miller for all that money, which I didn't like right off the bat, and I think you were in a fairly similar boat.
Yep.
But we sort of said, well, nothing we can do about it. Let's see what happens. And now, with we're seeing that sort of come home, right? They've decided, this management group has decided that Bo Horvat is not a number one center, most likely, because the number one center you're willing to pay 8.5 if they're a top end center. Do I think they're wrong for thinking that? I don't. I think if you didn't sign Bo Horvat last offseason and they didn't, and they went the Miller route, this was the best case scenario. Bo Horvat goes on an absolute tear, and ideally you can get a pretty good haul for him. Your other good option was that he played really bad and then you could sign him for cheap, but that doesn't really help anybody here. So yeah, it's definitely a weird vibe for sure.
And there's so many layers to it, but I'm really glad that you mentioned Parker, because I think, and I think Revenge of the Sith in our chat has been saying this a lot. Yeah, it's one thing you might say, oh, management messed up, or why won't Horvat? Yeah, I'm with you, and we've said this since the summer. Horvat probably wants to change the scenery, especially, and that Miller deal probably sealed the deal, quite frankly.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Bo Horvat's, his career. He's in his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, ninth season with the Vancouver Canucks.
Yeah.
He has played 23 playoff games. Right? Like,
some guys play that in 1 year.
yeah. If you're a Stanley Cup caliber team, that's about how many games you're going to have to play. Maybe more. You might play 28 games to win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
He's played 600 hockey games now. His 600th game was on Saturday. And he is he's a 30 goal, 50 to 60 point player. He's averaged, he's got 400 points basically in 600 games, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's like 55 point pace. And he's scoring a bunch of goals lately. The last 98 games, he has 51 goals. That's not too bad.
Wow.
So, 40 goal pace over the last 2 years. Yeah, it's he's going to get paid a pretty decent amount. And if I'm him, do I want to get paid here where the team is capped out and there's not many prospects coming up and there's no easy way up, right? This team is not 1 or 2 years away. So does he want to wait until he's 32, until he's contending for a Stanley Cup? Or does he want to go to a team that could really use a really good number 2 center that can maybe move up and play on the first line or take some faceoffs on the first line and bump a center over or something like that? I'm sure he definitely would prefer to do something like that.
Yeah. No, all things true. And by the way, we recognize or shout out Coach Rob, who gifted Canucks After Dark membership. It goes to Japan 4. So thank you, Coach Rob, and thank you, Japan 4, and Andrew Chang tuning in all the way from Tokyo, which is pretty cool. So thank you. I don't know the time difference, but I'm sure it might not be great. So, or maybe it's
probably
good,
just the morning. Yeah, it's probably not that bad.
That's true.
Yeah. So looking at this article, for some more depth.
Actually, I haven't read it yet, so I'm ready for you to educate me. Yes.
Yeah. So basically, what they said is, quote, "We believe the club tendered their leading goal scorer a max term offer, so 8 years, that was well shy of $8 million, which $8 million is about the rate for a top line center." So they said 8 years. So they said, we'll give you a bunch of term, which would be significant, right? That takes him to 35 years old, basically.
Yeah.
But well shy of 8 million. So I'm assuming that means 7.
Yeah.
That's still, that's not a terrible offer, right? It's $56 million. But if he thinks he can get an extra $500K a year and play for a team that maybe he's in a state that doesn't pay taxes or pays less taxes or wherever he might go, right? Like that, we could be talking about a pretty significant amount of money to be on a team that's also winning a lot of more hockey games. Like he's not a dumb guy. He can look around and be like, hey, what teams are, on the up and up, right? What
Yeah.
team would adding me to be a real boon for?
Yep.
So the other things that they say here, so the rejection of that offer is put Horvat on the trade block as the club looks ahead to monetizing Bo Horvat and their best trade chip prior to the deadline. Things can obviously change in the blink of an eye, which is fair because, JT Miller's on the trade block for months and they had that extension. But they say that we have the sense that it's going to be, quote, tough to stuff the genie back in the bottle in this case. The club is actively engaged in listening to offers. So here's what they're ideally looking for, apparently.
Okay.
Multiple young players.
Yeah.
So they are saying they want ideally centerman and right-handed defenseman, two of the most expensive pieces, which is fair. The club is poised to be reluctant to take back money to facilitate a trade or to retain salary. Now, I don't get why you'd be reluctant to retain salary on a guy whose contract is expiring at the end of the year, right? Unless it's just like it won't work to be cap compliant for the rest of the year. But I'm thinking like, you do what you got to do, right? Like,
and on that point, Parker, you're right. Let's say we get back a younger center and a good right hand D. You guess that they're not going to add up to 5.5 or whatever Bo's making. So I agree with you that you should be able to retain a little bit unless teams want us to retain 25% or something. Now we're talking about $1 million, $1.5 million. So
and if you're trading 2 for 1, right, you can kind of go to 6.5 because you're gonna have to send another guy to the AHL. And make some stuff work that way. So it's it is interesting. They also note that the Canucks have not given Horvat's agent permission to discuss a possible extension with any teams that are interested in trading for Horvat. Considering the volume of expected interest in Horvat, who's a faceoff specialist, power play ace, and lethal goal scorer, it is likely that such permission won't be granted at all. So he's likely to be dealt as a pure rental, which seems odd to me, right? I don't know.
Doesn't that lower your value?
You'd think so, right? Because then they only get him for the one run. But I'm not sure. I'm sure there's some weird reason that they have, but they say that, since there's going to be a lot of volume, they might not need to do that, because maybe that does reduce the options, right? Because maybe you do go and say, okay, you can go talk to all these different teams and say, okay, go talk to this person, that person, and whatever. And he's going to come back and say, yeah, I will only sign an extension with this team. So you're so then values might get lower, but I'm not entirely sure.
Actually, no, you're a smart guy. That's a really good point, because my first thought was, wouldn't a sign and trade, although very rare, maybe there's a reason why you think you'd fetch so much more, because now the team's owes you like 7 years of assets, versus, you're right, the much bigger field it is if it's a rental versus only a couple teams that might have the cap space to do that sign and trade. So that's a really, really good point. Wow, that's fascinating. This is so. If a lot of people, Parker, ask us or ask you, what do you? And you did that really good video of the evaluation of Rutherford and Alvin after 1 year. This, I think you'd agree, this is the true test. Like the Miller contract was big, some minor trades that you talked about, some moves, whatever. And all the off-ice stuff. But this is the true test of I think of their mettle. I think we can properly evaluate after March 3rd. Really.
Yeah, this is the first time they've really been on the clock, right?
Yeah.
The JT Miller deal, they made that move in September. Their deadline for that JT Miller decision was March 3rd, just like Bo Horvat's. And they made the decision to go the Miller route, which sort of led to where we are with Bo Horvat, right? That definitely had a big play. Now, obviously, there's a lot of things that happened in the previous regime that I would argue had more of an impact towards re-signing Bo Horvat. We sort of talked before the show that Arizona deal being the obvious culprit, which is a disaster and a half. So, yeah, it's a huge, it's the captain of the team, right? It is not their most valuable player, but their third most valuable player as of right now. Right. And probably the second best current playing member of the team. Because Hughes has been a little bit worse than last year, but still, Horvat scored 20 goals already. So this is it, right? This is going to be their marquee move for the next couple of years, most likely. They also say in the article that the club is prioritizing netting the right return rather than trying to make a deal promptly to enhance the lottery odds in the months ahead. But there's still an openness to execute a Horvat deal quickly if a rival club meets their ask. So they're not saying like, hey, we're going to push it as far as we can towards the trade deadline. They're also not saying we're going to try to get this done now to make the team worse because they're not going to make the playoffs anyways. Basically saying once we get the right offer, we'll make the move.
And it's funny. I guess the third one is they didn't say this, but I guess they're also not going to make a move quickly to try and make the playoffs either, right? They talked about not making a move just to help their lottery odds, but at the same time, they're not going to try and make a move and rush a move to try and make a playoff run, which seems, as you said, very unlikely at 15%. Okay, here's a thought for you. Do you think it's a done deal, or is this part, as some people suggested on Twitter, that this is typical negotiating through the media? Horvat's agent calls Rick Dhaliwal and says, "Hey, I don't know why, but say this, and then maybe it'll force the Canucks to give us another counter offer." I don't know. Do you put any stock into that?
Definitely possible. This management group so far has been notoriously tight-lipped.
Yeah.
So you have to think that, either they have, I'm sure the media is building connections with people that are with sources, right? And all these new people in the organization. So I'm sure they will get more and more as time goes on. But this could all be coming from the side of the agent, right? And I imagine a part of it I imagine that offer that got rejected, I imagine that came from the agent's side, but I'm sure then, Rick Dhaliwal knows who to ask and what to ask and probably got somewhere. I mean, right, my brain is thinking like 80-20 right now.
Because why would the Canucks come out and say, they're not going to try and make themselves look bad. They're not going to try and make Horvat look bad. They're not going to try and make anyone look bad. They want to make this happen, we think. But who knows, Matt? Maybe Alvina Rutherford, maybe this isn't rocket science. Maybe they hitched their wagon to Miller. It was plain as day back in August. And now they're not trying as hard as they could to sign Horvat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where do you think this leaves? So if you're going to trade Horvat because of the amount of money you're going to have to pay him.
Yep.
And the Canucks are not a playoff team this year, most likely. Yeah. 15-85, especially if you trade Horvat soon. I mean, it's there's 40 more goals this year that you've now given up, or at least on his pace.
Yeah.
What are you doing with Andrei Kuzmenko?
Well, it does open the door to re-signing him. I really think so. I think I've heard numbers as low as 3.5 to 4. I've heard his numbers as high as 5.5 to 6. Maybe it depends on what his total points and especially his goal total ends up to be. But I think more than anything, this signals they're related, but it's not exactly because this happened, this will happen. Mm-hmm. But it does lead me to believe that they're more willing, and they've always wanted to re-sign him. I really do, because I think it looked kind of bad if they beat out all these teams, but then they can't afford to. I guess that's the risk, right, that you take by him being so good this season.
Well, he's been great. Here's the thing: if he's getting $6 million, I think the Canucks are getting a steal. To be honest, at this point, here's a fun fact for you.
Okay.
Andrei Kuzmenko is less than a year younger than Bo Horvat. Right? Horvat is 27. Kuzmenko is 26. Obviously, Kuzmenko is putting up a ton of points, but a lot of that's coming from Elias Pettersson, to be fair. But he has been a great wing partner for Elias Pettersson, and probably someone that you'd want to continue to be a wing partner for Elias Pettersson. I know you mentioned the athletic player cards earlier, and I love the market value stat, because you can see, because ideally, salary cap world, as I'd like to say, the team that makes the most out of the money that you are allotted is the best team in the NHL, theoretically.
Yes.
Vancouver Canucks are paying Andrei Kuzmenko about $1 million. And his market value as of right now this year is $9.4 million. He's playing like a $9.4 million player currently.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's absurdly good. He is 92nd percentile offensively, 50th percentile defensively. So
Oh,
basically
that's not bad.
a top winger offensively and a decent winger defensively. And so overall, compared to average, he is 90th percentile of a winger.
Yeah, just like we're like the 90th percentile in Canucks YouTube shows.
Absolutely. But yeah, we're talking about a top
Yeah.
10% player, right?
Yeah.
Each team's got what, 8 wingers, top 10%. That's the best winger on most teams, right? Or on like
Sure.
a below average team.
I love what you said about Kuzmenko too being I think Kuzmenko is going to be to Petey what they were hoping Besser was going to be to Petey. Quite frankly,
Yeah.
his running mate. Yeah.
Yeah, they play really well together, and you see a guy like Ilya Mikheyev get in there too, right? Mikheyev, who's been pretty good.
What's his player card, by the way? Value.
I want you to guess.
Well, I know he's making 4.9.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say that he's close to that 4.5.
7.6.
Oh, I'm no good at this. 7.6.
Yeah, yeah. Well, he's
Wow.
on a 50-point pace. He's 96th percentile offensively, projected, which is pretty good. So yeah, McKayev's been very good analytically. You know, the team, but for the most part, like the players are there's most people that are pretty good analytically, and there's some big black holes, especially when you look on the defensive side, and at the goaltending that really are killing them at this point.
And Parker, these athletic, and I know these are, it's for only, they're behind a paywall, a cheap paywall, but they're behind a paywall. So I get, we don't want to spend too much time talking about it, but it does give a really good indication of how these players are playing. And is it compared to expectation or compared to other players? Because I know Demko's a minus. I know Tyler Myers is a minus, but is that compared to expectation or compared to other players in the league?
So I believe there's an article on it that I don't want to read.
Of course.
But basically it's based on the it's based on the projected future value, I guess. So it's based on wins. Like how much how many wins is this player projected to earn you over the course of a season? Right. And a win is worth about $3.3 million. So that's basically how they do the math. Mikheyev is worth about 2 wins. I think it's probably scaled up over time with inflation. Sure. But Mikheyev's worth about 2 wins, and that's putting him at $7.6 million.
Okay. Oh, thanks for explaining that. Okay, so I do know that Demko is like minus 1.4 million or something, right?
Yeah. So Demko is awesome. Worth minus $1.7 million at his current play, which makes his surplus value, which is how efficient you are to the cap, minus $6.7 million. Which is bad. That's a whole Tyler Myers and a little bit more.
Speaking of Tyler Myers.
Oh, you want his too? Tyler Myers is worth minus 0.1.
So minus 100,000.
So his surplus value is minus $6.1 million. So the Canucks between Myers and Demko this year are down. Throw Ekman Larson in there too. He's worth about minus 5. So there's $20 million, $15 million in the hole, which some of the other players make up for, but a lot of them don't.
Wow. Okay, so proving the point.
One more. JT Miller worth 8.4.
Oh, so
which is surprising based on his giveaways.
A quick aside about JT Miller though, Parker, but sort of on topic. So. I heard Halford and Bruff talking about this morning how with JT Miller, when you look at how much he handles the puck and his whatever, I don't know if it's underlying stats or not, that if you see it in terms of numbers and averages and not how egregious, how bad the turnover is, he's actually okay. It's just that the magnitude of his turnovers, the timing of his turnovers are so bad. I'm not saying that's justifying anything. It's just they're making the point that he does. A lot of people give him a hard time for sure because he screws up a lot, but he also handles the puck a lot more than almost any other player. That's what they were saying. Peter is asking for Riley Stillman's.
Fun fact: they only show a 20-man roster, and Riley Stillman didn't even make the cut for this article. Ethan Bear and Travis Dermott both did.
Dermott did, and he hasn't played this season.
Right, so it's kind of based off of
What's Dermott's value
more
then?
in the last year. They have it $2 million. Because again, it's based off the last 3 years, with your latest being the most, current year being worth the most, weight wise. So
Shen,
that's why
how you doing? Sorry, I'm sorry. How you doing is asking about Shen as well.
2.6
Okay.
is good. Good hockey player. And that's one of the reasons why JT Miller's so high, right? Because it's saying it's taking a lot of last year into account and saying, well, he's gonna, you know, these 20 games worth more than last year's 82.
Yeah.
Maybe not 100%, right? So that's part of the balance there as well.
Yeah.
So
Parker, what percentage of fans do you think are on quote Bo's side? Now, and I see in the chat it's got to be about 80-85%. Actually, even more. I haven't seen one single person said, "Oh, he should take a hometown discount. Oh, he's being greedy." Everyone's saying, "Good, go for it. Good for him. Do your thing. You've given us 8-9 loyal years. Go make money.
Yeah.
Go play for a good team." Do you think that's going to be the general sentiment?
it really should be. Like, he has been, we can talk about how he's been the captain, and the team's never done anything, right? But we can also look at who ran the team and say that that's more, it's the people around him. Horvat was never the problem. Sure, he was never, an 80-point player, but he's been a consistent, 60-point pace guy for the last 5 years, really, right? Which is a very valuable piece. Elias Pettersson basically, pushed him down to be a very good second line center, right? We always talk about how if you're putting up 50 points, you're a very good second liner. And you're putting up 60 and you're winning 58% of the faceoffs. That's awesome. And the Canucks have had him on a bargain for 6 years, right? I remember that. I remember the day that contract was signed. Because I was working at Northview. And I remember that contract got signed, and I was thinking,
you're 8 years old.
That's a good deal.
Yes.
Like that's a heck of a deal. And I really liked it. And it has been, like, he has been good. And we're at the point where the team around him hasn't done anything for him. You look back at the bubble, he had 10 goals in 17 games. Remember, he couldn't stop scoring.
Yes.
Kind of like right now. So yeah, if I'm putting myself in his shoes and I'm saying, well, I can stay here, and like every kid, they grow up, he's from Ontario. He grows up, he wants to win the Stanley Cup. That's it. That's the goal. You look at the picture here and you say, well, how do we get there? I'm not going to make it happen. I can't make it happen. I'm not in the situation to make it happen, but I can go somewhere else that is better managed, and have a chance of, that's already a contender, and have a chance to do it maybe even this year. Right? Like, I would be doing the exact same thing.
And the Horvat career arc, Parker's, is interesting. Very generally, I'm speaking, of course, but got drafted, got the shades that they were talking about. He could be a two-way center. Then we saw that he was better offensively than defensively, but not the best skater. Then he works on his skating. Then he's kind of bad defensively still. So we kind of take away the two-way center kind of mystique.
Yeah.
Then we progresses, learns under Henrik, becomes a captain, has an awesome bubble where he makes the St. Louis Blues look like fools on a couple goals, and even Vegas, and then this whole thing, Miller, not versus Horvat, but how are they doing together, blah blah blah, and then he gets to this year, so he's definitely up and down, but he's certainly, the trajectory is up, so. Yeah, and it's going to show, like you said, so well 6 years ago when he signed that, 5 years ago, 5.5. That's it's not McKinnon good, but it's a really good contract.
Yeah, and for a team, if we are talking about a pure rental, right?
Yep.
And we're talking about, there's only going to be about $2 million of that cap hit left by that point of the season, right? That is, you are adding in and we said this a lot about JT Miller last year when we thought they started with the deadline and how he would have so much value, because you're adding a guy who's probably going to score around 50 goals this year, and is going to win 58% of the faceoffs for you, that you can put on your, you can put him on your second line, and he will be, fantastic. Sure, defensively he's been bad this year. Last year was his best year defensively, at least analytically. This year's been bad. So yeah, we're talking about a very, very valuable player. I don't know if he's as valuable as JT Miller was last year, but yeah, he's a, 1/2C that, they don't come around. That's a great leader, right? He's the
You
captain.
you read my mind. That's exactly what I was going to ask you right before you said it. Vis-a-vis Miller. So I'm kind of thinking, Parker, in my head, what happens if we hadn't signed Miller yet? Would $8 million still be like the make or break? Or if we hadn't signed Miller and somehow we were sitting here on December 12th saying Miller and Horvat are both unsigned, then can you go after Horvat first and try and get him to 7 to 7.5? Or is he looking at Rupee Hintz getting 8/8 and blah, blah, blah? So that's the fascinating thing. And if you don't think he's a 1C, you're not going to pay a 2C $8 million. So that's the other thing. So in Horvat's mind, and I remember when the agent was talking about this, I kind of smirked a little bit because it was at the start of the season when he said, "Oh, Horvat's a 1C," and I said, "Oh, is he really?" But his numbers show that he is. I don't
Yeah,
know.
he's not an elite 1C, but
Okay.
he's, on a team of the Vancouver Canucks caliber, he's absolutely a 1C. They just happen to have a better 1C in Elias
Yeah.
Pettersson.
Yes.
But there's a lot of teams that don't have a great number one center, right?
Yep.
That he would fit right in
Yep.
to be their 1C. Not a lot of playoff teams, I don't think. There's none that are like jumping to mind as like who the good candidates might be.
Justin keeps mentioning, not keeps. Justin mentioned Washington a couple times with Backstrom out.
Yeah, and that's a fair shout. Washington
Yep.
has had a bit of a rebound lately.
Mm-hmm.
They're technically outside of the playoff picture right now, so they might be a little hesitant to do that.
Right. Right.
But I had their odds up on the Athletics odds thing. They've shot up from down sort of around 25%. They're up to 52% now. So they're basically a coin flip. Adding a player like Horvat probably helps.
Right.
However, if I am Bo Horvat, I don't know if Washington's a team that I'm looking at signing long term, right?
Right.
Because this is a team that has, their key players are a 37-year-old Alex Ovechkin or however old he is, a 30-year-old Kuznetsov, a 32-year-old Carlson, right? Their best players are getting up there in age. But definitely as a rental, right? That
Yeah.
could be definitely a decent spot for him to end up. Although I think Strome's doing really well for them, but
Okay.
again, you'd probably rather have a guy like Horvat there than a guy like Strome.
Some people also suggesting Detroit because it's close to Michigan, close to Ontario, where Bo's from. They're very surprising. They're 13-8-6, so a lot of overtime losses, but 32 points in 27 games.
Yep.
Technically in a playoff spot right now, so or right there. So that's and they might lose Dylan Larkin. They might choose Horvat. Well, whatever. I'm getting ahead of myself, but maybe they're preparing for losing Dylan Larkin, who is known to be the second maybe highest sought after UFA this year. So that's an interesting fit.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of places that, yeah, even if they do have a great first line center,
Yep.
right? There's a lot of places where it wouldn't hurt to add a great second line center because you're going to play your first line 20 minutes a night and play your second line 18 minutes a night. Does it matter that much, right? So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, good
I
point.
think there will be a lot of interested parties.
So okay, as we figured, we went 30 minutes on this one topic. Ultimately, in your mind, Parker, done deal. Horvat's gone at the trade deadline.
80%.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still a chance they get something done. There's also a chance that the Canucks win 30 games in a row and they keep him as their own rental. However unlikely that might be, and probably not a choice that I would make, but who knows?
Yeah. Yeah, we've seen the days of Ham, Hughes, and Verbata being lost for nothing when they're actually good. So, but
Yeah.
this is by far the biggest. Well, I guess you knew that Markstrom and Tanev were expiring to Foley, but that was a weird year where they're setting up for the expansion draft. Whatever. Oh man, this is Guess what we're going to be talking about for the next 9 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, that is what's going to happen, isn't it? Well,
Wow.
strap in. Make
Yeah.
sure you're subscribed for that. Hit like, do all that good stuff. Do you want to go to the people?
Let's go to the people.
Last 10 minutes. Do we have anything
Yeah.
else that we wanted to to hit on here? I don't think so. You want any more player cards? Anyone you're interested in? Tanner Pearson's isn't good.
What is it?
Yeah, it's like minus something. It's not great.
Parker, you know what?
He's
Because
worth
people
0.4.
have been asking if there's only 20. Just rip through them. It'll take you a minute. Just name a value if you don't mind, because I think people really want to know. They've been asking about all of them in the chat.
Elias Pettersson, 12.7. Awesome. JT Miller, 8.4. Brock Besser, $1.2 million, which hurts. Bose at 8.8. Mikheyev, 7.6. Kuzmenko, that 9.4. Niels Höglander, 0.6. So basically replacement level.
Yeah.
Vasily Podkolzin, 0.9. So exactly what he gets paid,
Yeah.
basically. Connor Garland, 4.5. Although this year he is a lot worse than remember, it's taking the last couple years into account as well. So he was worth 2.5 wins in 2021, 2.7 wins 2021, 2022. Keep saying 20. And this year so far, he's only projected to be worth about 1.1, which would in theory make him worth about 3 million.
Right.
Which is less than 5.
Yeah.
Dakota Joshua, 2.1. They have Niels Oman at negative 0.3. He analytically, he's been pretty hemmed in, which makes me sad because I have a piece coming out on Niels Oman pretty soon. Hopefully he's still on the team by the time that drops, because that would be my nightmare.
Tell Drance to hurry up.
Yeah, apparently, even though it's in my court again.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Quinn Hughes, 6.3, bit of a dip. That
By the way,
2021 season's hurting that for sure.
Okay. And then Park and I were joking around. Quinn 6.3. Would you say that Quinn is 1/3 the player that Makar is? Because Makar's card is 19 million.
Cale Makar's so good.
I know.
Yeah, the problem is defensively, Quinn Hughes has been abysmal this year, which hurts. He's been better offensive than last year, so that makes it tough. Oliver Ekman-Larsson's worth 2.6.
Oh.
They're paying him a lot more than that for a lot more years. Tyler Myers is worth negative 0.1. Luke Shen is worth 2.6. Travis Dermott's worth 2. Ethan Bear is worth 1.6. Thad Ademko, like we said, minus 1.7. Spencer Martin is worth 0.9.
His salary, basically.
Basically. Yep.
Surprised Martin's on a little bit more, but I guess that makes okay.
Yeah.
So we're getting
so
we're getting negative out of our D and our goaltending, basically.
Yeah. Which is not surprising.
No, it makes sense, actually.
We also had a request for Tage Thompson, 13
million.
And remember, that's taking into account the last couple of years as well, where he was not as, he wasn't projected to score 52 goals, which helps.
I'm so happy I got in my fantasy league, Parker. And it's a keeper league where it's year over year. So
that's a good keeper. 25 years old, had 40 goals last year. Is going to score 50 this year. Yeah, not too bad. His Cale Makar's really that high.
Yeah.
McKinnon's worth 16.5. Rantanen's worth 14. Landeskog's worth 12.2. Nichushkin's worth 11.4. All of them surplus. Lekkonen's worth 7.4, which is 3 million over what he gets paid. Do they have any negatives? Dryden Hunt is one of their negatives. Darren Helm, so 2 guys making basically minimum. Yeah. Cale Makar, 19.6. Devon Taves was worth 14.2. You know how much Devon Taves makes? Makes $4 million a year. Bowen Barnes with 2.5, which is more than he makes. Sam Girard is their big negative. And Eric Johnson.
Sam Girard's negative? Wow.
Yeah, he's had a bad year, I think. Okay. And last year he wasn't very good either. But the 2 years prior to that, he was fantastic.
Right.
So just, he's had a bit of a fall lately, but a decent candidate for a bounce back, you'd have to think.
Okay, we're not going to make you look up every single player in the league, but let's do only three more because people ask, and then
3 more.
Please, and then that's it. McDavid, Matthews, Ovechkin, please.
Okay, McDavid would be Edmonton. Matthews is Toronto, Washington. Yeah. Okay, Connor McDavid is worth $21.2 million. He's worth 6 wins per year.
Okay,
and I guess that makes sense. Drysdale's worth 14.5 too.
Okay.
Austin Matthews is worth 19.3. And Alex Ovechkin is worth 10.5, and he makes 9.5.
Okay. Wow, thank you for doing all that. And yes, it is behind a paywall. So if you,
Yeah, I
yeah,
don't want to. I don't want Drance to come after me because I'm sure I'm not. I'm like he'd care that much, but
no, that's cool. That's
yeah,
cool.
Jason Robertson is worth like 20 as well. So
Wow, 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 wow.
all right, 5 minutes to go.
Okay.
Any questions from the people?
Well,
Um,
there's been a lot of talking about, well, we still reserve judgment on Rutherford and LV, and kind of what you said, how it's Benning's the group that, and a lot of people blaming Francesco actually, even more than Benning.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
Dean, thank you for the 5.
Oh,
Much
yeah.
appreciated.
Yeah, you don't have to pay to ask questions, but thank
You
you. We
don't,
appreciate
but
it.
you can if you'd like to. Dean asks, would you trade Podkolzin or Hoaglander for a 3rd round pick?
I don't.
I don't
I
think
don't.
I do either. If I were to trade one of them for a 3rd round pick, it would probably be Niels Hoaglander, but
Yeah.
I think both of them are like, especially Hoaglander, I bet is a pretty decent candidate for a change of scenery bump. Because he was playing much better before Bruce Boudreau came in. What's the harm in holding him for one more year when you're going to have a new coach anyways, and see if that turns him around? And same with Podkolzin, right?
Right.
I think I don't think a 3rd round pick gets you any closer to the ultimate goal than a guy like Podkolzin or Hoaglander does.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't think it would be like a franchise ruining trade if you did, but I don't think it's something they need to do. What they need to do is get rid of the salary issues.
You know, Ray Ferraro talked about this very thing about quote giving up on Podkolzin. He was talking about Podkolzin, and he used the example of Tage Thompson. He said Tage Thompson is, like you said, 25. It took him a while to get to where he's at now, and he's not saying that Podkolzin is going to be like Tage Thompson, but it's a cautionary tale of giving up too early on your highly valued prospect. So that's my way of saying no. I would not do that trade.
Yeah. Peter says Parker for owner. Does that mean I'm a multi-billionaire?
Do it.
Sweet. Sold. All right. What else do we have? Eli asks future captaincy core after Horvat goes. So theoretically, all the letters are off. Who
Okay.
are you? Who's your captain? Who are your 2As?
They like to go 2 forwards, 2D. So I go, man, I would go Ekman Larson and Hughes if Ekman Larson's around, because yeah, his contract sucks, but he's a good leader. And then I would go Petey and Miller, and I'd give the C to Petey. I'd slap it right on his chest.
Yeah, Elias Pettersson's my captain.
Yeah.
100%. Elias Pettersson is the captain. Like you could give it to OEL theoretically, but I mean I think that's more like, remember when who did Florida have as their captain a few years ago? It was like
it
was a 4th liner.
Oh.
Panthers captain, like 2016, let's say. Oh man, it just gives me the Carolina Panthers. Derek McKenzie. They made their captain. And he was at like the very tail end of his career, and he was like, he was a 20-point player on their 4th. No, he wasn't. He was like a 16-point player on their 4th line, and they made him the captain. Which is basically what that would be for Oliver Ekman-Larsson. I mean, we're talking about a guy who I don't think you're going to give the captain to a guy who you're probably not going to have in the lineup every night in a year or two. So yeah, I think that would be an iffy choice. But yeah, I mean, I'm giving the C to Petey straight away.
Sure.
And then I'm probably giving an A to Miller, and I'm probably giving. I don't know who I give the second one to. Do you go the Quinn Hughes route?
Yeah.
That could be a choice as well. Give it to Thatcher Demko. Why not?
Yeah. And also someone, JS also, I keep calling him JZ in my streams. JS, no, Shen, yeah, great leader, but no guarantee he's here next year. Yeah.
Yeah. If they sign Shen to like a 3-year deal at like $1.5 million or something, or $2 million, then maybe. But again, it's a stopgap, right? Like you want your
Mhm.
captain to be someone who's going to play for you for a long time, right?
Yes.
For the next 10 years, ideally. Um, so yeah.
Yep. I agree.
Um, what else we got? I guess we're at 11. We can take one or two more.
Sure. I saw
Any that
one. I saw one about here, and I pulled out the bio calculator. Indeed, it would be 2.4, then 5 million for a couple of years, and then back to 2 million again.
to buy out Ekman Larson. So
Yeah.
we're talking, yeah. So the cap hit would be, if you let's say you bought him out this off season,
Yeah.
you would pay him $146,000 next season. So you'd save $8 million on the cap next year. Basically, a full Bo Horvat on the cap next year.
Yeah.
And then you would have to pay 2.4, 4.8, 4.8.
Yeah.
And that takes you to when his contract would have ended. And then the rest of the way, you are spending 2.13 basically for 4 years extra. So you're tacked on with $2.5 million basically for 4 extra years. Technically,
Yep.
it's $10 million of savings on the cap.
Right. And then when you're paying that 2 million, even though he's not on your books anymore, like on the team, I mean, he's of course not on your team, but he's not on the books. It's the salary cap is probably going to be way higher by then. But then, of course, it's all relative. You still want to use your money.
Yeah.
So, would you do it? The question is, would you do it?
I don't know if you do it this year. Maybe you wait a year because then it's only 2 extra years, or I guess 3 extra years instead of 4. And that number gets lower. Uh, I mean, the problem with buying him out this year is that the majority of the cap savings come next season. So that you'd have to make a play for next year, right?
Yeah.
Like what are they going to do with an extra $8 million next year? Where does that get them, right? I don't think it gets them very far. So I say, push it out a year, eat it for next year because they're probably not winning the Stanley Cup next year. And then that sort of maximizes your savings in 2024, 25, 25, 26, 26, 27. And then maybe it has a little bit more value at that point.
I will say the numbers aren't as bad as I expected, quite frankly.
Yeah, it is a fairly buyoutable contract.
Yeah.
Even though it's not great.
Yeah. I hear you.
All right.
Prediction time. We got two games.
Prediction time. Let me pull up the old schedule. So the Vancouver Canucks play Wednesday in Calgary and Saturday at home against Winnipeg, and then Monday the 19th against St. Louis. So three games.
Okay.
I say they probably lose in Calgary and they beat Winnipeg and they beat St. Louis. So I am going with a good old 2-1.
I'll go 1-1-1. I will say they lose to Calgary. They beat Winnipeg. They seem to beat Winnipeg at home, and then only at home. And then I think they get a loser point against St. Louis, although I want them to win.
Sounds good. We'll take it. All right. I think we're going to wrap up there, folks. If you enjoyed the show and you missed any part of it, you can rewind back to the beginning, or you can find it on your favorite podcast platform in a matter of about 15 minutes. Clay, any parting words for this fine evening?
Well, this has been great. This has been a good show. Thank you. I think we hit 150 people. We appreciate you, all of you, spending some time with us on Monday night. We know, Parker and I, we talk about all the time that our numbers are not that's all about numbers, but we do a lot better when we stay on Monday night. So we're going to try and do that as much as we can. So hit the like button on the way out. And never a dull moment with this team. There's always something going on. And today proved it once again. But I hope we were able to break it down to you for you in a digestible way.
Yep. So that's it, folks. Thank you very much. Have a lovely rest of your week. And we will talk to you next time.